Who's going to be the next Indiana? You need to look no further than the Big 12, my friends. And don't take my word for it, okay? You can call me a Big 12 homer sitting here saying, oh, the next Indiana is in the Big 12. Take ESPN's word for it, okay? Because in this video, I'll tell you which Big 12 team that was terrible last year ESPN predicted to make the playoff, why I agree that that team has Indiana-level potential, and another Big 12 candidate to become the next version of the Hoosiers, okay? So everybody realizes by now at this point, Indiana is a very special thing in college football. We have literally never seen anything like it. The ratings for the national championship game were off the charts, about as good as we've ever seen in the playoff era because largely of that story, right? People are enamored with this. Like, Indiana's going to go 16-0 2 years after going 3-9. It's just breaking brains across the sport. It is breaking every preconceived notion that anybody has had about college football and what it takes to win and how much talent you have to have on your roster and how much pedigree you have to have. It's changed everything, totally shifted the paradigm. But can it be replicated? Can it be done again? I heard Josh Pate talking about this, and I thought it was so good. And now I'm forgetting the name of the guy. The man who ran the first 4-minute mile. I'm going to get this for you in just a second. That was a real paradigm shift moment. Roger Bannister, okay, in 1954. We have the Bannister Effect, where Roger Bannister was the first person ever to break 4 minutes in a mile. He did it, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people did after him. So this feat that was considered impossible, once people saw, oh, hey, it is possible, then a bunch of others followed and did it. There's some kind of mental block to it, right? It was possible for one of the worst programs in college football history to win a national championship and to do it in just 2 years after going 3-9. That was always possible. We've just never seen it done. So now that you've seen it done, will there be repeat Kurt Signettis? Will there be repeat Indianas? And where are those teams going to come from? Look, I think there are a couple good Big 12 candidates for this, and I actually think it's really uncanny, some of these candidates, okay? First of all, it should be really encouraging to Big 12 fans that Indiana did do what they did. Now, I know they do have the backing of the Big Ten TV contract. They've got some extra money from that. Mark Cuban's now pumping money into their NIL operation, but they didn't get started with that. They still made the playoff a year after going 3-9 without the Mark Cuban infusion and with just the guys that Sig put together coming off of a 3-9 season. And remember, resources or not, if you check the 24/7 Sports talent composite, Indiana had the 72nd best roster in the country, the 72nd most talented roster in the country this year. That talent composite is based on what these players were coming out of high school. So, yeah, is that a somewhat flawed metric? Sure, but, that's what your Bud Elliott's of the world push all the time. Blue chip ratio, talent composite, like that. That's what you roll with. Indiana had the 72nd best roster. That 3 spots below Tulane. John Summerall at Tulane had a more talented roster this year, according to the 24/7 Sports talent composite. All right. So that's a positive for Big 12 fans, regardless of how much money they get from the Big Ten TV deal. That team can turn it around and make the playoff and then win a national championship. That should give you hope. You know what else should give you hope? The last team that got really close and basically did the same thing for a year, they pulled a half Signetti, was Arizona State. Arizona State went from 3-9 to 11-3 and within an eyelash of the semifinal of the college football playoff. How many times you've heard me say 4th and 13 away from beating Texas, right? I heard Cam Scadaboo talking about that recently, and he was complaining about the call on the catch that the Texas kid made. Anyway, I had to chuckle. I was happy that Cam Scadaboo still thinks about that because it haunts me, and I'm not even an ASU fan, right? But that was a half Signetti. That was pulling off the first part of the Signetti, and that was even advancing further into the playoff than Signetti did when he got bounced in the first round. Arizona State got a bye and then damn near made the semifinal. And hey, the last surprise team to make a national championship game was TCU in 2022 before Indiana, right? That was the last surprise team really to get there. So I have 2 teams. I think it's fair to say that team could absolutely come from the Big 12, the next Indiana. And I've got 2 teams that I think fit that bill. ESPN agrees with me on one of them. Here's one that ESPN did not mention. I think it's Houston, okay? Not enough people are talking about this. Not enough people are talking about Houston and the comparison of Willie Fritz and Kurt Signetti. Guys, it is uncanny, okay? All right? Clip this. It's uncanny. Kurt Signetti, 64 years old. Willie Fritz at Houston, 65 years old. They both have a near identical background in addition to being guys toward the end of their career. Like, these are not young up-and-coming head coaches, but they are up-and-coming because they won at the Division II level and they won at the FCS level. They won big at schools nobody had heard of, and so they weren't hot, sexy names coming up that way, but they've both won everywhere they've been. Willie Fritz just doesn't say Google me, but Signetti won at IUP, won at Elon, won at James Madison. Willie Fritz won at Blinn Community College, Central Missouri, Sam Houston, Georgia Southern, Tulane, and now Houston. And they both just win big, win big, win big. Willie Fritz took over a 4-8 program. He got him to 10-3 within 2 years. Kurt Signetti took over a 3-9 program. They went 11-2 and then won the national championship. Like, it's the same profile. These guys are scary similar, okay? If you're talking about an algorithm that would suggest related content, if it saw Kurt Signetti and then saw Willie Fritz, it would send you Willie Fritz next in your doom scroll because they're the same thing. If you like one, you're going to like the other. And now you plug in the profile of what this Houston team actually is. Connor Wegman's back. Amari Thomas back at receiver. They pull in a top 10 portal class according to On3. And if we're talking about the offense, they really helped refuel the running game with a couple. I mean, their studs in that class are a couple of offensive linemen and a running back. So you feel like the offense really has a lot of meat to it, a lot of pop to it. And then a defense, dude, if you're giving me a Willie Fritz defense, I'm going to trust that it's going to be pretty damn good. I'm just going to take my chances that a Willie Fritz defense will be pretty darn good. He lost Sheil Wood after year one, his defensive coordinator, a big-time bright spot from that 4-win year in year one, and it didn't matter. Texas Tech money whipped him fine. We'll just go out and win 10 games and still put together a top-tier Big 12 defense. He's going to continue to do that. So I love Houston here as having the potential to be a team that people are just like shocked is in the college football playoff. I'm not necessarily calling for a national championship for Houston, but I think that's a team that could really shock some people. I'm going to get to the other one with ESPN here in just one quick second, okay? Please do subscribe to the channel. Please do like the video. I'm trying to get to 30K subs. I would appreciate your subscription. Okay, the one that ESPN would agree on, the one that ESPN has in one instance predicted to make the college football playoff next year. Next year, okay? That would be your 1-11 Oklahoma State Cowboys. And this is from Bill Connelly, who was picking the college football playoff based on a formula, right? So it was like, hey, in the SEC, the teams making the playoff have either been Georgia or somebody who beat Kirby Smart in the regular season. Or in the Big 12, I'm trying to remember his specific formula in the Big 12. It was either follow the money, which obviously last year with Texas Tech, right? Or somebody that had a losing season the year before, I think was that. Anyway, he picked Texas Tech, which won't shock you from the Big 12. But for the at-large spots, he said one of them is always somebody who had a losing season the year before. And that's where Oklahoma State got slotted in by Bill Connelly here. 1-11 last year to the college football playoff. Here is Bill Connelly's reasoning. He says, hear me out. Were the Cowboys abjectly hopeless in 2025? Absolutely. They plummeted to 1-11 with what was their worst team since 1963 per S&P Plus. But they made a potentially dynamite hire in Eric Morris, one of my favorite hires of the cycle, and he has basically imported his dynamite North Texas offense, bringing in 17 former Mean Green players, including stars Drew Mestamaker, Caleb Hawkins, and Wyatt Young. Oklahoma State will score plenty of points in 2026, and if the Cowboys' close game luck flips as well, they could be a huge turnaround story. That was one thing he pointed out that I thought was good. Bad close game luck last year for the Pokes. That is something a lot of people, you'll see Phil Steele point to that can flip and be better. They are pulling so where Willie Fritz in Houston hit this like similar coach who just wins everywhere and has the same type of background. On the flip side, Oklahoma State's trying to pull the, hey, we'll bring up a bunch of guys from where this dude coached before and win right away with them because of the continuity and like I know these guys can play. And so that's what's happening here, but to a greater extent. They have way more North Texas players than James Madison players that followed Signetti to Indiana. So that's what Oklahoma State is doing here and why they draw this comp. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world that, like, if you're going to have to pull 54 kids out of the portal, having 17 that played with your head coach the year before helps a lot. I mean, in some ways, that's like you could almost reduce the portal number. You could take 54 minus 17 because those guys played for the same staff last year. It's essentially like you had them in your program last season. I would make that point there that certainly softens the blow. It lessens it. Okay. Now, another thing pointed out by Bill Connelly, I mean, he just loves Eric Morris. He's good he'll have a good offense. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Quarterback whisperer, Coach Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, Cam Ward at Incarnate Word turns him into a number 1 pick. Drew Mestamaker at North Texas, totally out of nowhere to being one of the top flight kids in the portal, and has won big at places that haven't had a ton of success in North Texas and Incarnate Word. That's another part of Connelly's real reasoning here. And so as much as you could look at it and say, hey, man, I don't know, 1-11, that's even worse than Indiana was. This is different. Oklahoma State's got the bones of a winning football program. We all know that. It's been a rough last 2 years, but they were in the Big 12 championship game 3 years ago. Yeah, Indiana was 3-9, but that's a program that was, I mean, bottom 5 in college football from a Power 4 standpoint. So Oklahoma State has much more. They have a lot more that's ready to like put some rocket boosters on you there in theory, right? Obviously, Indiana took off like a rocket anyway because of Signetti and who he is. I'm not saying I think Eric Morris is that, but I think Eric Morris is a good coach. I think it's a good hire, and I think there's a lot there to help boost you forward in year one. So I can see where you'd say, hey, the ingredients seem to be here. Whether or not they're all going to mix together right in the blender and come out correctly, I don't know. But the correct ingredients seem to be there. And by the way, in this playoff that Bill Connelly put together, Oklahoma State would be the 11 seed, and they would travel to Texas A&M in the first round of the college football playoff. How fun would that be? You get an old school Big 12 matchup between Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. That's pulling at my heartstrings, my friends. That is a man, Bill Connelly, after my own heart with that. Okay, click here if you want to learn how Oklahoma State resurrected its program to be potentially playoff worthy.